as you're moving faster, and most of us always on the web side and the mobile space want to move faster and faster, is that we're thinking about not only the architecture, but also from a team perspective, how can we make sure that a team owns and actually can deliver value in their service, if you will, so that they can actually move faster, and it's not everybody have to work together at any single point to actually do one thing. You really want to think about not only breaking up the architecture into a service level, so service-oriented architecture, but also from the organization starting to think about that same thing. So that really will have an impact not only on iteration speed, but also helping for each of those teams thinking about the purpose and why they're actually building the software they are, and that's super valuable. Yeah, so the CIOs, so there's basically two things that I would recommend that they think about. One is the architecture of the software from the ground up. So when they're actually starting their companies or they're actually reflecting on what the technical stack looks like, they need to be thinking about really being able to drive accountability into different sections of their software stack and actually be able to divide those things up. So not only will they think about the technical choices that they're making, but actually thinking about who's responsible for them, is the organizational clearly defined so they actually own those different parts, so that when you actually are thinking about making product changes or making infrastructure changes, you can actually move much faster. What we've seen in the past is that when you don't have a clear architecture, or when you have an architecture that tends to fold in on itself and there's too many blurry lines, that actually iteration speed becomes a huge problem. For a company like Twitter, where we have a huge amount of data, an always increasing amount of data, we're actually always thinking about how can we actually think about it and derive relevance and think about, from the user's perspective, which part of this data stream is actually important. So from thinking about the big data problem, we use the classic Hadoop MapReduce style, but we're really thinking about how can we drive real-time analytics, how can we think about this as a real-time problem, and that's one of the big challenges that I think all of us are starting to think about more and more, and especially at Twitter we're starting to think about. Within my organization, I work on a lot, or my folks work on a lot of infrastructure, and the majority, if not all of it at this point, is actually open source. The majority of it is. It's either stuff that we've actually taken from the community and are contributing back. It's a lot of things that we've actually contributed to the open source community. A good example is something we called Finagle, which is actually our core RPC stack. So the way our services communicate is a clear part of our architectural success. It's one that we actually pushed out a couple of years ago. There's other things like Mesos, which is our cloud infrastructure play, which is actually a huge part of our success, not only from an efficiency standpoint, but also a flexibility one. That's also open source, and that's one that we actually are contributing to and started actually at Berkeley, in the University of California at Berkeley. So we're huge fans, and not only the contribution, but also open sourcing our own software stuff. Twitter is a very cool place to work at. Twitter is, for any systems developer, actually incredibly exciting. We have a massive, for the communication platform for the world, it's just from a systems perspective, a huge scale, big data, a lot of compute. It's just a developer's dream. So really the thing here from my standpoint and my job being a senior director in engineering is really to make sure that every engineer is excited, passionate, and doing the things that they love in this at Twitter, which is really thinking about the hard problems of the future, thinking about how to deliver more value to our users. And that's part of what we're focused on the infrastructure side, is really making sure that the scale of the service with hundreds of millions of users and worldwide communication platforms, we're constantly focused on the individual, and that's a huge scale problem and a lot of fun to work on.